And I was hoping you could tell me what happened that night that God first spoke to you in that audible voice, and what your understanding of God is these days. Who or what is God to you these days?
It's not a question of who or what God is, but who or what God is not. Because to try to define God and to try to answer your question, who or what is God, is almost impossible, since there's nothing that is not God. It's much easier to answer the question, who is God not? And the answer is nothing. Nothing that exists is not a part of that which we call God. So nothing in reality, nothing in physical reality, or even for that matter, metaphysical reality, is not a part of what I call God. Nothing stands outside of God. So the answer is that God is everything. Many of the world's religions speak in those terms. They speak of God as the all in all, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. You know, the unseen seer, the unmoved mover. They try to find some phrase that can grapple with the enormity of what we would call God. So that's who and what God is to me, everything really. And what happened that night is really described in the book. It's in the first book, it's described pretty clearly there. I simply had reached a point in my life where I was no longer happy with how things were going, and I didn't understand why life was showing up the way it was, and I didn't know what I had to do to make life work anymore, and I really wrote out an angry letter on a yellow legal pad that happened to be on the coffee table in front of me. I woke up in the middle of the night, very angry, just threw the covers back, restless and couldn't sleep. It was 20 after 4 in the morning, and I thought, gosh, you know, what does it take to make life work? And what have I done to deserve a life of such continuing struggle? And I sat there on the coffee table and I just wrote out, I don't know what I thought I was doing, I just wrote out the questions, just really to get it out of my system, more than anything. But then I heard that voice over my right shoulder that said, do you really want answers to all these questions, or are you just venting? I turned around, of course there was no one there. And I thought, my God, I know I heard somebody there. And then I realized either I'm going out of my mind, which was entirely possible, or or something extraordinary has just happened here. So then I wrote on my yellow legal pad, just on a whim, yes, well, I am venting, but but if you've got answers to these questions, I'd sure like to know what they are. And immediately, like a download, as if someone had just downloaded a large amount of information in my mind. Everything that's in the first part of that book came to me right there. And I began writing incredibly fast to try to capture all of it that I want to say, receiving. Before I knew it, I realized that I was involved in an on-paper dialogue that was just proceeding back and forth. But about 50 or 60 pages into it, handwritten pages, it said, this will one day become a book.
So there was a definite sense that this information that you were receiving was not coming from, it wasn't coming from a distant memory or a...
No, because, and I'll tell you why I knew that, because nothing that I was hearing was part of my previous understanding of anything. I'll give you one example. It said, somewhere in the early part of our exchange, it said, there's no such thing as the 10 Commandments. That was so far removed from my upbringing, from my, spiritual awareness, what I presumed to be my spiritual awareness. It was so far removed from my cultural understanding that such a thought was almost blasphemy.